that's how it looks to me. From Egan, Glacier Hills Elementary second graders, welcome to you guys. Mrs. Olson's class from St. James, Newport Elementary first graders, hello. Mrs. Young from Wheaton, Minnesota. We have Mrs. Bartz's second graders. We have Anderson Elementary, welcome. Mrs. Zimmerman's fifth graders from Eagle Lake. We are excited to see you. It looks like our friends from YouTube are joining us as well. So welcome to everybody. I'm Sue Knott with the Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom program. We are going to start this last virtual field trip of the school year at 10 a.m., which is in about 1 minute. So if you're joining us, we're using the Q&A to put your location, your school, your town, and your grade level. So we have Mr. Schmaltz's third graders from Lewiston, Altura. Sorry, I said that wrong. Mrs. Plant, second graders from South Washington County. Glad to have you. Mrs. Gould from Washington Elementary. We have some North Dakotans with us. So seventh graders from Lakefords Academy in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Glad to have you. Some more second graders from Glacial Hills, Mrs. Sinoa. Mrs. Schweier from Wabasso, glad to have you guys. Mrs. Jensen, second graders from Tyler, Minnesota. Mrs. Ekstrom's second graders from St. James. Blooming Prairie second graders. Forest Lake, Mrs. Q's crew, welcome to you. So I know there's a bunch more that are here, and I am gonna hopefully give you a shout out later on if I can, but it's 10 o'clock, so we are going to get started. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sue Knott. I'm an education specialist for the Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom program. I am joined by my colleague, Carrie Seidel, who is our tech person today. So if we have some issues with the signal, she's gonna jump in and help us out. And then Emily Ponwith is our curriculum specialist focused in the St. Peter, Le Sueur, Mankato area, and she's the one that's doing the camera work today for our last virtual field trip of this school year. So just a quick reminder that we welcome your questions, would love for you to ask questions as we go. Please use the Q&A feature. So type your question in there and I will hopefully be able to ask it to our host today. And sometimes we get so many questions, it's hard to get them all asked, but I will definitely do my best. So put your questions in the Q&A whenever you have a chance or whenever you have a question. So we are gonna jump to Le Sueur, Minnesota to Brewery Hill Farm, and they are best known for their Christmas trees, but they grow lots and lots of other things too. And today we're going to focus on strawberries. So I would like to introduce you all to Scott Wilson, the owner of Brewery Hill Farm near Le Sueur. Hi, Scott. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and your farm?
I sure will. Hi, students. My farm was started in 1981. The Christmas tree part of the farming was started in 1981, me, my father, and my wife. And it started advancing and growing a little bit at a time. Now we say we have about 50,000 Christmas trees on our property in different locations. And this is just one of them. It's kind of one of the home farm part of it. We are going to talk about strawberries today. It is Brewery Hill Christmas trees. We have different little things that we grow, kind of a rotational things. And today we're going to talk about strawberries. We call it Mary's Berries, named after my late wife. And we'll just kind of get right into the berry part of the process. So in the spring of the year, or even the year before, we'll have pumpkins on the piece of ground that we're growing the strawberries on. The pumpkins are a good rotation for strawberries. Strawberries are planted. The first year they're planted, there's no production off them. We'll let them grow, turn into nice big strawberry plants. We actually remove the blossoms off the plants so that they don't go to fruiting. So they put more energy into the plant itself, and they'll make runners out off those plants. And the pumpkins the year before were planted, and we fertilized the ground. We put a lot of nutrients into the ground to get that ready and set up for the oncoming year for the strawberries. So she's showing you right now the new planted strawberries. And if you can see how we're planted with a machine, and you can see they're already trying to start to bloom. And we don't want that. So what we'll do is we'll come through here when they all are in bloom. And then we come through in here, we just snip them off. So we pull those off. Those would be strawberries, but we don't want those on right now. And you can see the cluster of berries. So the big berry here is called the kingberry. I mean, that's the very first bloom that comes out. It's called the kingberry. That'll be the biggest berry. And all the other little berries, I'd see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 11 blossoms or blooms would be on there. It would form that many berries per plant. And that's just one runner. So at one time I figured out one time that I had a 200-foot row of strawberries can produce as many as 10,000 strawberries. 2,000-foot row of strawberry plants can produce 10,000 strawberries. And that's a lot of berries here. We'll harvest on a good year up to 20 tons of strawberries. So these will be cultivated throughout the year. You can see
I'm
here.
going to interrupt you for a second. We have a couple questions that are, as long as you're talking about numbers, we have a couple of questions for numbers. So Kelly wants to know, how many strawberry plants did you plant? And another student is curious, did you plant them by seed, or how did you plant those strawberries that you just showed us?
Planted with a strawberry planter. It's kind of a weird looking thing. It's got a shoe. They cut.
Okay, one moment. We lost your signal. Oh, you're back. Okay. Emily, I need you to move around.
And then we sit in it, and it's got a wheel pulling out here. This is when it didn't go. Okay, so that would be a strawberry crown plant that wasn't planted properly, and it didn't become a plant. But that's what they would look like when we plant them. The roots on there, a little bit of a bud set, and it goes in. And see, they're already now, and this was planted, these were planted the 3rd week of April. So they're already in their second leafing. And these will actually make runners. If you notice, here's a runner. This is an old runner, but they'll start making runners. They'll come out all over here, and they'll cover up all of this. They'll actually make a row of that many. So one strawberry plant will probably make as many other little sublary strawberry plants, probably about 6 to 10 more plants off that one plant. And those little runners will produce lots and lots of berries. And so I'll cultivate this here when they get a little bigger, and you can see the tiny little weeds. That's a big grass, quackgrass, but all the little tiny weeds you can see growing, starting to grow in there, will eliminate those. And as the strawberry plant itself gets up, you'll see some older ones later. They'll be pretty lush and thick.
So Scott, someone asked, we have a student that wants to know, you use the word cultivate. What does cultivate mean?
I thought about bringing my tractor out here with the cultivator on there to show, but visuals are always better. But the tractor itself, I'll have a cultivator that the tractor will go down the row here, and I'll have blades that go in the ground, and I'll just kind of pretend it's a cultivator. It'll actually stir the ground like this, and that actually eliminates little weeds that are starting to grow, but it'll throw it up and tilt up the soil. So it'll eliminate any starter weed growth, and it'll keep it pretty bare. You don't want weed competition. Other plants will compete with the strawberry with nutrients and water, and will not have it produce as much as it did. I always tell people, I said, in the Christmas tree business, everything's a weed that you don't want. So if you got a garden and there's a rose growing in it, you don't want the rose, it becomes a weed because it's competing with everything else in the garden that you want. So that's how we kind of look at a weed. So also underneath these strawberry rows are irrigation lines. And those irrigation lines are right back here. So since this is a new one, I haven't got it in, but this line is right underneath the root line. And I'll put a header on, and I think you can see an old header right over here. This was last year's. This is a pumpkin. This is going to be pumpkins this year, but this was last year's strawberries, and you can see how it's connected to this header. And then we'll have a transfer water tank come in here, and I'll put water right to the roots of the strawberries if we need it. And last year we needed it early on because it was very dry and very hot.
So Scott, we have a few more questions. So first of all, back to the cultivator. Mrs. Westrom's class wants to know, how does the cultivator not mess up the strawberry plants?
I'll show you here. So they're called shoes, but they're diggers. And the diggers come into the ground and I can make them as close in here or as wide as I am. So when I start them, they're this wide out. So, because you don't want the dirt to cover up the plant as you're going down. It'll start cutting the ground and it'll throw dirt in like that. So until these plants get up a little higher, I keep it out here, and they'll dig up this whole area, and there'll be a space here. So these shoes I can keep moving in a little bit. So I want that row to stay about this wide. So it's about 2 foot wide is all I want that row to become, because a strawberry runner, he'll take out this whole field. That'll be nothing but strawberry plants if you let it go. They're very aggressive of berries. They're very aggressive plants, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put runners out because that's how they reproduce themselves with more berries. And you want them to stay inside so we can cultivate those areas.
Okay, Scott, a few more questions about the particular strawberries that you're growing. Mrs. class wants to know, what is the name or what is the type of strawberries that you grow? And Mrs. Schweier's class wants to know where you get them from.
Yep. So I played around with different varieties. You got to remember, there is actually hundreds of varieties of strawberry plants. And some strawberry plants grow in zone 10, which is down by the Alabama, Florida and stuff like that. And some will grow in 7, which is in Missouri. And some will grow up here, we are 4. And then even maybe 3 up a little bit north of us. That's a zone, a climate zone. You can look that up sometime. But the varied varieties in the climates that we are, where this is a harsh climate, Minnesota is a very harsh climate. So there's only a certain amount that will actually grow here. I grow June berries. So the berries I do grow that I found, because I played with about a dozen different kinds that I really like because of sweetness, shape, firmability, and the growth of the plant itself. I grow Jewel, I grow Favorfest, and I grow Sonata. And once in a while I grow a thing called a variety called Yuma or Yama. So those 3 or 4 is what I found really work best on my ground, and also in the upper Midwest here. They have great flavor, unbelievable flavor. You'll never eat a strawberry better out of the field than you will in a store any day. A little kickback on that. The strawberries they grow down south can be very large, like the ones you have in the store, but they have to sacrifice something. It's generally their sweetness. To get larger, anything, you have to sacrifice other traits in a plant. And so it depends on what you want out of it. They're still sweet, but they're not like a berry like these here. Why they have to sacrifice some things, because that berry has to be able to be shipped all over the world. So when they pick that berry, it's white. It's not red. Because if you pick a red strawberry, the shelf life is 0. I mean, you got to get at them right away. So what they actually do is they put them through a gassing situation that turns them red really fast. So if you cut a strawberry in half from the store, you'll see it's still white inside. And that's because, gassing didn't make it ripe all the way through. And they need that to stay firm so they can ship it so you can eat it. And they're all good. There's nothing wrong with them. But the berries we grow here, or anybody else that grows a truck stand berry, those are red all the way through. And the sugars from this natural sunlight, everything that goes with them, and the varieties that were put into them make them a very super sweet berry that you can use in jams and everything else you do.
All right, Scott, a few classes, including Miss Nazami's, I don't know, Mrs. Nazami, if that's how you say your name. I'm sorry if it's not, but first graders in Golden Valley and a few other classes want to know how long it takes from when you plant the strawberries until you can eat them. So why don't you talk a little bit about that growing process and how long it takes until we can eat those red berries?
So that blossom that I just showed you, it takes from that one top blossom is in the full blossom, that'd be 21 days after they bloom. So those other ones haven't bloomed yet. So as they bloom, you get kind of a season going on. So my particular berries, you got ever-bearing berries that will go through the whole summer, but they don't bear a lot. And you got June berries that only bear in June for about a 3-week period, but you get lots of berries. And my operation, I'm doing so many other things on the farm, I can't go a whole summer dealing with berries. So it works out really good for me. What was the other part of that question?
Yeah, I think they're just curious what it takes to get them from when you plant them to when you get to harvest them. So what do you have to do in between?
So like this new starter field right here, you know, well, it's been fertilized, so that's been done already. So that does before we plant. We have to do the cultivating to keep them up. I inspect all the time to make sure we're not getting any issues with the plants and stuff like that. I and I also water. Like I said, the irrigation I just showed you can be very timely. We bring out the transfer tank, because I don't have a well on site right here, but I can put equivalent. So here's another math note: an inch of rain on an acre of land. 1 acre of land, an inch of rain is equivalent to 27,500 gallons thereabout. I can take that same and put a drip irrigation system in. I can put an inch of rain on the root system with about 800 gallons on that acre. So it's a kind of a cool thing that we do here, but it takes a lot of time and stuff. But you have to watch the plant, especially when they're just planted, as far as the irrigation part of it. As they're getting older, like the one over here that was planted last year, we'll talk about that in a minute. Water is critical, especially when the berries are being made. Remember, berries, 90% moisture. So it needs moisture at the right time to fill that berry to be nice and big and plump.
We have had a couple questions about those plants behind you. So they're wondering, students are wondering if those are strawberries, and if they are, how old are they?
So the berries we were just standing in, those plants, these were the same size last year. These haven't been harvested. This will be their first harvest year. And they're still growing out. It's been a late summer, a late spring, which means it was colder longer. So these plants are just now really taking out. And you can look down the rows. I think you can see white in there. A lot of white petal blossoms coming in. And remember, I said, this is a kingberry right here. He'll be the biggest berry, and all the other berries are really good to eat. There isn't any difference in the quality of the eating, but they're just a little smaller as they start going down.
So Scott, Mrs. Hulbert's class is wondering about how many strawberries are you able to grow and harvest each year? And I know you told us about tons, but do you have any guess about how many strawberries that would be? And they're also curious, how big are the strawberries that you grow? Like you mentioned, the big ones that are grown in southern part of the United States. How big are the ones that are on your farm generally?
And of course, that depends on the climate here. When you're dealing with something with a climatic thing, the more water on them, the better. In the right circumstances, we're actually getting a great spring for everything growing, because it's been on the cooler side. They aren't shocking all with the heat and drought stress. So they're coming slower, which means it's going to be a really good year. The strawberries we get are, if I want to put a size to it, I suppose they're probably that big around, you know, they're probably a ping pong ball, the golf ball size berry, you know, and then of course, different varieties will be different as far as size wise. The reason we went from the little guys, this is last year's planting. This will come, like I said, this will look like snow. It will be in here in a couple of weeks. There'll be so many blossoms. They'll be just white down the rows. And so how many berries can you get on an acre of land? Tonnage wise, you know, I kind of told the tonnage wise, but if you take, I did an estimate one time. So this row particular is 200 foot long on this one field. And there's 42 rows in this just one spot, 200 foot row. And I figured I'd estimated there'd be about anywhere from 10 to 12,000 strawberries on one row. So that's the production that you can get out of them if everything's done right. And of course, this has been fertilized also this spring. I done a pre-fertilized right before. It's a lighter fertilizer later on, and we're going to get to that I'll take this then and as we harvest goes into June. We have a lot of people come out here. I have people that pick for us. A lot of people don't want to pick their own because it is stoop labor. You got to bend over and pick berries. You know what? If you do them over and over and over, it's quite a work, but our pickers make pretty good money doing it. And but you want to come out and do your own. A lot of people enjoy that, which is really fun to watch the kids do berry picking on their own. If you see the straw in the row, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's the reason they're called strawberries, I guess. I never thought about that till we started doing it, but this is called a matted row system. When you do this is called matted rows. So there's a difference between the two strawberry systems. Down south in California and places like that, they actually do a raised bed system where it's mounded up and then they put plastic or some kind of a poly, and that eliminates the weeds, but they also put like fungicides underneath there and stuff like that because they have to down in their climate. So ours aren't so bad. But in the northern climate, that doesn't work because it gets so cold here, the berries, crowns and stuff would freeze out. So what we do here after the season's over, I take and I mow down the strawberry plants. I mow them off. I mow them right down to almost nothing. And then what I do is, you see how wide it is right here, about 2 foot. I take then a big tiller and I reduce it down to about a foot. I just mow them all the way down to a foot. They're pretty beat up, but they like that. They're aggressive. And like I said, the runners they make, this was one, let's just say this was last year's strawberry plant. He made all of these. That one plant made all of these. That's the parent plant, made all these sibling plants. So what I do is I reduce it back down again, and that parent plant says, let's make some more then. It's like making babies in a way. So
now we have a bunch of questions, and I'm going to try to get to a couple of them. So you mentioned picking strawberries or harvesting. There's a bunch of questions about the harvesting. So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about how you pick and how many people come to help you? And secondly, could you tell us, where do the strawberries end up? Do they go to grocery stores, or do you sell them on your farm, or can people come out and pick them themselves and just bring them home? So tell us about that picking process and then where the strawberries go.
Yep. So when we first started doing it, we didn't have as much. And not many people knew about us. So we would take them into town after we'd pick them and we'd sell them. Didn't take long to sell. People see us and they buy them. As we got more and more and more, we started hiring, basically junior high kids. Before they drive, they can come out, make a pretty good money. We pay them by the pound and they pick for us. And then, and nothing leaves the farm. So we'll have a stand up here. We take orders. People call us, say, hey, I want 20 pounds of strawberries. We'll go pick 20 pounds. We'll have them here when they come and get them. Or people that show up at any time because we have hours and they just show up and they can come out and pick their own if they want to. And like I said, that's kind of a fun event that people do, and you can eat all you want as you're picking. And yeah, that's did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did. Thanks, Scott. We have a couple other questions. Georgia is wondering if bunnies ever try to eat your berries. And Mrs. Greenwald's class was also wondering if there's animals that get into your field, and how do you discourage those pests, that animals, from eating your crops?
What did Georgia ask? What was her question?
She wants to know if bunnies ever come and eat your strawberries.
Well, if you look, this is just one field. I got a number of fields around. So the pests on the strawberries basically is either not enough water or too much water. Would hurt the strawberries more than any wildlife. The bunnies don't, if they do, Georgia, they don't hurt the strawberries because these strawberry plants are very vigorous. Like I said, they grow very, very fast. They grow very vigorous. So I know raccoons will eat strawberries. I know crows will eat strawberries. Deer, they're in here all the time. I mean, I see deer tracks all the time, but if they eat anything, I don't see noticeable damage to any of it. I think it's just a numbers thing, shock and all. There's so many that if they eat some of it, they're welcome to it because I don't think it's hurting my production at all.
Okay, awesome. So a few more questions. Nicole wants to know how much water your irrigation and your farm uses.
It depends on, obviously, depends on the need. If it's like last year, early part of June, we started into a drought cycle in March last year. March and April, May were very dry and they were very warm. And I was worried about a long-term drought as far as the summer was concerned. And then we had 3 100-degree days the first 10 days of June, which is very abnormal. And our berries obviously were like now, they were needing the fluid because of the water, because of the berry production. So we were pumping the water I mean, I didn't stop with running water, really. This year we haven't done any of it. I don't really foresee it. Actually, there's two reasons that you lose water. Obviously, without rain, you don't have water, but people forget evaporation is what really is how you lose water. Evaporation is the wind blowing right now, the sun coming down, moisture comes up, it weeps to the surface, and it gets evaporated into the air. You lose water through evaporation as much as you do anything else. So the cooler the weather, the less evaporation you actually get. And cloudier weather the same way. So, but you do need sunlight. Sunlight makes everything. Photosynthesis is you have to have it to make our berries. And actually, the sunnier the weather, the sweeter the berries get. That's just how it works.
All right, let's hope for lots of sun so we can have some sweet berries. Ellie is wondering why strawberries start out white and then change to red.
They actually start out green. They start green first. They're actually little green things. They start, real little, and they start going. And I think, and not until they get about half of what they're going to be, eventually do they turn white. So the white phase is right before the red phase. That's why there's actually, you can eat a white berry and it tastes sweet. You can actually taste the sweetness in a white berry. But obviously the redness comes from the sun and it just ripens itself up. And one of the reasons it's ripening up because it wants to be fully ripe because it wants birds to eat it. You got to remember the seeds are in the berry. So it wants other things to eat those berries, and then it spreads them around the area. That's how a lot of things get reproduced, especially plant life. It makes a flower, so the bees come in and you pollinate the flower, it makes a seed. So that's the same thing goes with here.
All right, Scott, one more question for you right now. Mr. McCartney's class in Owatonna, they've asked lots of questions, but one that I want to ask you right now is how many other crops do you grow besides strawberries?
Well, the big crop here is Christmas trees. Like I said, we run about 50,000 Christmas trees, but the pumpkins I'll have, last year I sold, I suppose, about 8,000 pumpkins last year. And I grow 18 varieties of pumpkins just because I like to screw around and do things like that. And we have 3 varieties of squash that we grow, and I don't know how many thousands of those we sold. So that's a rotation. Like I said, we have it's a 3-year strawberry crop. We take it out and I kind of summer follow it for that year after we take it out at the end of June. We'll come back the next year. We put pumpkins in it. That way I can keep the weed control really good in it. And then we following year after that would be the strawberries. We also have asparagus. I planted 2,000 feet of asparagus. Talked about that today. Usually I harvest anywhere from 60 to 70 pounds of asparagus a day. I put that on Facebook. It's gone in no time. That's just kind of I play with different things. It's kind of fun. I have 5 children. The children that I have, they're all mature now. I actually have grandchildren, and they're a big part of the farm. Without my children, there's no way I could run this farm because it's so much manual labor. So what we'll do is the manual labor part, the planting and the watering, that's kind of mechanical, but we come through here and weed control. It's all done by hand. We'll come in here with hose and we'll come back here. You can see probably my biggest nemesis is the dandelion. They're growing in there and they blow in, and we remove those out of the planting. But we do that number of times a year. We walk, we'll just take rows and walk all day long doing the rows of weeding in these.
Okay, Scott, we've had a couple classes want to know, what is the biggest strawberry you've ever grown?
I don't know if we've ever weighed it, but you know what? They take on some weird shapes sometimes, probably about that big, but we've had them, they look like hearts. They'll go in like that and they'll look like a heart. And we've had a lot of different things there. Sometimes there's mutations on a lot of things as they're vigorously growing, but we've had some, when the pickers pick, they'll bring things in once in a while and they'll say, hey, look what I got here, but yeah, well, I would say baseball size, I've seen.
Sure. Okay. There's also a couple questions, and you, Scott, you may have answered this already, but how many acres is your total farm? How big is your farm?
I have, since it's a specialty crop farm, it's a 100-acre farm. So specialty crops is everything but cultivated like corn and beans. A specialty crop would be, well, maybe strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, pumpkins, Christmas trees, a whole lot of other things. And that's generally 100-acre specialty crop farm is big because there's just so many, talking to you, I've already been doing a lot of work before I start talking to you, and I'll work till the end of because I get a lot done now because it gets dark at the end of the day, about 9:30 at night. So I can actually do a lot of stuff, and anybody that's farming can understand that.
Scott, we've also had a couple of questions about if you ever need to protect your strawberry plants from hail or rain or other weather events.
And so this morning when I woke up, I actually had frost on the low part of my farm at the other spot. I actually had some frost. Frost is probably the worst thing you can have. And especially right now with the blooming going on, a frost will kill that center of that bloom and you won't get a berry. It wasn't hard enough to do that. It was 38 degrees in the low spots. It got obviously down to 32. This is a high area. We didn't get any of that here, but sometimes a frost can hurt the berries really bad. You can take your production out one time. I know pea growers who are in full blown with their peas. I've seen frost just annihilate them. But hail, as far as hail's concerned, I haven't had any hail. If it was bad enough, obviously it could. There's hail zones in the state. You can talk to insurance adjusters where those are at. They have maps, actually. They can tell you exactly where the problematic areas are. In the 40 years of me being around here, I think I can only remember 2 real bad hail events in those 40 years, and we didn't have strawberries at the time.
So that was probably lucky for you. Okay, we're nearing our end here, Scott, but I have a couple final questions. Macy is wondering if you like to eat strawberries, and if you do, what is your favorite strawberry food?
Well, who doesn't like to eat strawberries, number one? But yes, I do like to eat strawberries. My favorite strawberry food? Oh, I would say a strawberry pie would be my favorite. But I like strawberry jam. Look at me. Do I look like I'm afraid of eating? No, I eat about everything there is. So anything with strawberries is good with me.
I'm a big fan of strawberry pie too, Scott. Okay, Mrs. Westrom's class did some calculating. They think that if they figured out what you said, there would be about 84,000 strawberries per field. Do you think that seems accurate?
It could be. I didn't do the math the whole field because it can vary, but that would probably be, probably right.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Westrom, or class, for doing those calculations. So, Scott, I have one final question for you. What is your favorite part about being a specialty crop grower and farmer?
I would say that I love nature. Everything out here is, doing something for the natural world. I think the problem we have with a lot of our issues that we have in the world today is the lack of the knowledge of the natural world. The natural world came before us and it answers all the questions. And unless you're out in the natural world, you're really not seeing life and death at its frontest. But I love being part of that and growing things like this, actually growing something and watching it produce that you did it with your hands. And then everybody else gets excited about it too. I'm surprised my children, as hard work as this is, get into this as much as they do. But I think most of it is because we've always lived our life around the natural world as far as hunting, fishing, taking care of trees, the whole life that we do. Everything has meaning and purpose. And that's probably why I like it so much.
Well, awesome. That's a fantastic answer, Scott. And I want to thank you so much for hosting us on at Brewery Hill Farm near Sueur, Minnesota. We learned a ton about strawberries and just about you, Scott. So thanks for being our host for this last virtual field trip of our year. And thank you, teachers and students, for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned a few more things. I have a few quick announcements before we go. First of all, teachers, please think about signing up for our Ag Mag magazine series for next year. I have a sample right here. This is our Ag Mag Kindergarten. as strawberries on the front. But we have a fall and a spring issue for each grade level. So this is Ag Mag K, we have Ag Mag 1, Ag Mag 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you're interested in signing up for those free magazines, May 26th, so that's this Thursday, we'll open up the signups for next year. So please sign up if you're thinking they might be a helpful tool in your classroom next school year. Also, teachers, we have 5 summer teacher tours that we're offering this summer, some professional development to get to see farms like Brewery Hill Farm. Similar, we're not going to Brewery Hill Farm, but to other farms, and meeting agriculturalists to hear about how agriculture can be a great tool to use in your curriculum and classroom. So check out our website. Carrie, if you could drop the link in the chat, it's on our mnagmag.org/teacher tours is where you can find the dates and details of all of those professional development opportunities. So thanks again for joining us. We hope that this was a great virtual field trip. Have an awesome rest of the school year and enjoy your summer. Bye, everyone.